Hi, welcome to Real Life. Today we're on the road, coming to you from Sash and Bustle in Toronto. Lovely bridal shop.
Gorgeous bridal shop, and part of the reason we're here, aside from exploring all the racks of beautiful dresses, is we're going to be talking fantastic wedding trends today with none other than, this is a real authority for Canadian brides, Wedding Bells magazine.
Yes.
We're going to be touching base with the editor-in-chief.
Now, Wedding Bells magazine this year is celebrating a very significant and exciting anniversary, 25 years. It's been out for 25 years. So what we're going to talk about, partly in addition to today's trends, are the trends that were in style in 1985 when the magazine was introduced, and think the 80s. Just think the 80s.
I'm glad I wasn't an 80s bride, I have to say.
But you know what? Some of that's coming back now.
Do you know what? It's amazing that some of the trends that have resurfaced and ones that have sort of seamlessly blended into today's culture. So we'll take a look at some fabulous dresses, a look at music from the receptions of days gone by, and just lots of wedding fun.
If you're one of the lucky ladies sporting an engagement ring these days, then perhaps this is one of the books that's on your shelf right now, Wedding Bells magazine. Definitely a great resource for the planning stages of your wedding. I like looking through it myself anyways. Beautiful magazine, and Alison McGill joins me, editor-in-chief of Wedding Bells magazine. You have your finger on the pulse of everything wedding.
I do.
Yes.
It's I live it and breathe it.
Now you have, the magazine has put together a survey to see just what's hanging on in terms of wedding, what's hot.
We do. Every year we put together an annual reader survey where we go out into the field and we talk to our readers and we say, hey guys, what's registering on your wedding meter? So we ask them all kinds of questions, all the ins and outs of their wedding planning, from how much they're spending to where they're honeymooning, and they come back to us with all these great answers that we translate into stats.
Right. Now when you talk about how much spending, that's always pretty much top of the list, because when you start, you need a budget.
You do need a budget, and our readers are basically telling us the average that they're spending for their wedding is $20,000. So which is a fair chunk of change.
It's a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, and bear in mind, that's the average. So, things typically, if you're budgeting for that, they never typically stay on track, even though we try our very best. Yeah. Lots of little details, especially with weddings, creep in, and that budget can get eroded pretty quickly.
Now, when it came to the budget for the wedding, you also looked into, through the survey, who is putting the bill for that budget.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was a real sort of mixture breakdown. Couples are older when they get married. Typically, the bride is, 29 and the groom is, 30 years old. So these are people who are established. They have a career. A lot of people have already sort of made steps to build their lives together. So they're earning their own money. So that old adage that, the bride's parents pay for everything is not necessarily the way anymore. There certainly is family help. A lot of couples want to pay for their wedding all on their own, so they save for it. So there's a couple of different things going on there.
So that's kind of interesting.
It is very interesting.
That's interesting that it's not always that dad's footing the entire bill for the wedding.
No, and I mean, the groom's parents might also chip in. There could be other family members. A lot of people are also, downscaling that wedding as another trend that's happening a little bit, and going destination, which is something that we've been asking about.
That is huge. I hear more people, and just hearing more about it in general. It used to be kind of an exotic idea, and now it's very mainstream. It's
very mainstream, and we have seen over the course of our reader surveys for the past couple of years that statistic, although it's still relatively small, it is gaining momentum and growing incrementally every year.
I guess that the upside is it can save on cost. It's quite pretty, it's beautiful, it's fun, and it gets the honeymoon and the wedding kind of all in one shot. But on the downside, if you do want to have all the family and friends and coworkers at your wedding, it kind of
that's not the option for you. So you really kind of have to know yourself, know your family, and feel confident about that decision if you're going to make it, because typically you're not going to take 120 people on location.
No, and everyone in your family and circle and friends can't afford necessarily to fly off for a week to a destination. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it is a great idea if you want to roll that honeymoon and wedding into one and save some money. Perfect.
But honeymoons, that came into play in your survey?
It did. Couples are sort of spending around the $5,000 mark for a honeymoon. And at Wedding Bells, one of our things that we love, obviously, is we love doing honeymoon research.
Oh, yeah.
And traveling is so fantastic, and there's so many great places that couples choose to honeymoon now. We're really moving sort of out of that stereotype of just, heading to, a warm beach, lots of European holidays. People are going exotic, and, our philosophy is it could be the most luxurious vacation you ever take.
Well, it will be for a long time for many couples, because if you do start a family shortly after getting married, then your travel plans are going to be changed for a substantial amount of time.
Oh, absolutely. So, if you have that place that you've always had in your mind that you've really dreamed of, I encourage couples to go for it because it is that dream holiday, and maybe there's other things you can do in your wedding planning that you can save on.
Right. So there are honeymoons. Now, what else did you look into in the survey?
We did some fun statistics actually. One of them was, does the groom not see the wedding dress? Is that still happening?
Yes.
And largely it is, which I think is a great tradition because we've seen weddings become very modernized. But I think that's a really nice tradition. Like there's still a surprise at the end of the wedding planning road. Another kind of interesting statistic is that couples were reporting that they fight more during the whole wedding planning process, which we can kind of see. No, it's not surprising.
It's so stressful.
It is stressful, and it's, everybody's coming in with so many different opinions, and I think largely it becomes sort of the family fueling the fire a lot of the times because there's just so many people putting input into this day.
Sure.
So it stands to reason that you maybe would argue a little bit more with your upcoming.
You're supposed to be.
Yeah, you're supposed to be.
Yes.
Yeah, soon to be.
Soon to be.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. And when we talk about that and family and tradition, you did do research on the tradition of the engagement, and does a groom ask for the permission? Does he get on one knee? What did we find in terms of old, long-standing tradition?
Nice tradition still happening is the groom typically still does have that discussion with the bride's father, which I think is nice.
I do too.
I think it's a wonderful sort of, I think it's a tradition, it's long-standing, it shows respect, and it's also a good way to start things off because it's, two families, coming together, and I think it's very sweet.
Yes. And the one knee thing?
Grooms, I have to tell you, are getting really crazy and inventive with their proposals. So he does get down on one knee, but he might be doing it at a baseball game. He could be skydiving. They could be scuba diving. All kinds of crazy things. But when it comes to engagements, the number one thing is, knowing your audience. What I mean by that is, if she's shy, don't do it on a jumbotron. Typically, most people like to keep it private, so maybe doing it in front of the entire family at Christmas time might not be an option either. So that's what I mean by that.
And the ring is still pretty much the centerpiece.
The ring is the centerpiece, but a lot of couples actually may go and shop for the ring together, so when he proposes he might not have a ring, and I think that's great because a woman sort of has personal style, so I think she should have a little input into that because that's a piece she's going to wear every day and should love forever.
Right. And finally, I wanted to touch on, because it not only involves the couple themselves or the immediate family, but everyone involved, is the gifts and the gifting.
Yes.
The trends there.
Yeah. Registry, again, is something that, I encourage all couples to do because it takes the stress out of gifting for the guests. You give a wedding gift because you want to, and basically that should be something that's, meaningful to you, that's meaningful to the couple. So if it's off their registry and it's going to be something that they've asked for and will be, moving forward, something they need in their life. A great idea that's happening with registries is the honeymoon registry.
That is a good idea.
So back to that, it's gifting with an experience.
Yes.
Which I think is fantastic.
And what about the, how do people feel about returning gifts?
Well, it's frowned upon. It's, but it can happen, but that's where the registry takes the stress out because you're not going to end up getting, 5 toasters. If you've asked for one, people will know, and it keeps the guests informed.
Right. Well, it's because of surveys like this that Wedding Bells truly knows what's going on with today's bride in the year 2010. Has always known since 1985.
It's 1985.
So look for it on newsstands, also online.
Weddingbells.ca.
Yes, and check out this lovely shop that we're in, Sash and Bustle in Toronto. They're also online. We'll be back with more coming up on Real Life in just a moment.